Hey there, Hofstra fans, and welcome inside the WB Mason Coaches Report on GoHofstra.com. I'm Julian Coultry, joined by the first time this season by the head coach of the Hofstra Pride baseball team, John Russo. Coach, how's it going today?
Good, thanks for having me.
Well, first question, we'll recap last season, then jump right into this season. Ended the season not the way that you would have wanted, not making the CAA tournament, but it was sort of an exciting finish to the end. Obviously, the last game, 12-10 loss in 10 innings to UNCW. When you look at the season and how it kind of shaped out, you got hot at the end of the year, but you weren't able to make the tournament. Do you think it was a matter of maybe not having your best stuff in the beginning months?
Well, losing Dalton Russo in the first game of the season, there's not much losing for first team All-CAA guy. And then, the bigger thing that I thought, we lost Ford also and overcoming injuries with a roster that's already pretty determined with that. So I don't think we had as much infield depth as what we probably should have had. I think weather played a little bit of havoc into our season. We opened up at JMU. We were only 11 games in and started conference play 0-6 and just made it too big of a hole to recover from. But, at the end of the day, we did put up the third most wins in school history and, really battled back. And, any type of run scored there in the bottom of the ninth against UNCW, we make the tournament and have a great season. So, it was inches from greatness, but it never really turned the corner. I thought the kids really battled and did everything they could with that season for sure.
Now, you have some departures this year, both seniors and upperclassmen who maybe weren't destined for departure but wound up leaving anyway. Verbitsky, of course, your closer, he gets drafted in the majors, he leaves as a senior. And then Matt Reistetter, who was projected to most likely be the starting catcher this year, goes into the Washington Nationals organization. What did you see from those two, and what sort of departures do you expect, or what do you expect from those sort of departures?
With seniors and stuff, it's always easy, and now we're turning the corner and getting juniors drafted, which is a great thing, and successful programs, and so we won't complain about that. And I think we were pretty much in place, ready for Brian to move on to next level. We probably thought we were going to get right center back this year, but when he left and the time that happened was tough timing, and so I don't know if we necessarily have that covered. But we definitely have guys in place that are ready to do it. So, it's hard. We were expecting a lot of it. We were prepared as best as we could be and, ready to battle on.
Jump into this season now. We'll start with the offense. You mentioned a couple of names that went down with injuries last year. Dalton Russo, Matt Ford, they're coming back. Obviously, Kenny Jackson has been an offensive threat these past couple of seasons. What do you see from the lineup, and what are the big things that you're expecting from the guys like Russo and Ford who weren't here last year?
I think the thing that Dalton and Matt bring us is great leadership. Besides defensively that you're talking about, they were a leadoff hitter and 3-hole hitter, and they were big parts of everything we did as a program. And I think the thing that got missed most last year from those two was their defensive play. I mean, Matt was CAA Defensive Player of the Year as a junior. Dalton was CAA Defensive Player of the Year coming into his year. So you're talking about maybe arguably the best middle infield in the East Coast, and you lose double play turns, you lose those extra plays that they make that are great plays and things that they can do. And, in turn, that really gives the confidence of a pitching staff and everything. I think it helps out the whole unit. And their leadership has been great. You're talking Kenny Jackson, a 4-year starter for us, and has had a great career and is even a better person than he is a player. And to get him back and to have a year, it gives us some stability definitely at the top of the lineup and, more importantly, out in the field.
Ask you a follow-up question as far as the offense goes. In your first 2 seasons as head coach, running the bases and stealing bases has been a key part. You expect to see that continue this year?
It is. Right now we've been doing a lot of stuff with recruiting and teams, and now that I've been here 2 years, we get stuck with some stuff, and people say we steal a lot, but I argue that we also led the country in 11 of 15 offensive categories. We're in the top 10, so we hit a lot of doubles, and it's has a lot of variables to it, but we're always going to continue to try to run in this program, and it's always a part of our offense. And we just want to consistently try to put as much pressure on the opponents as we possibly can, and be this tough to handle or prepare for every week for every opponent. So we're never going to take an inning off or any time off, and we're going to try to hold other teams accountable to that.
As far as the position battles go, we'll start with obviously catcher being the big one because Reistetter, he winds up leaving. Who do you expect to see that guy who's going to be leading that staff opening day, and what sort of names are out there?
Well, Rob Cafiero played a lot of third base, shortstop, second base, right field. He moved around a lot for us, and we knew that coming in that he'd be very versatile. He backed up Matt when Matt was out a few games last year, and he's going to take over the starting catching role and do most of the heavy lifting at it. And He's been great in the preseason, and his skills behind the plate are great, but the thing that he does even better than that is he's a great leader. I think the pitching staff loves throwing to him. He's very confident. He brings a lot of things, intangibles behind the plate that I think he can't make up for, and the throwing, Matt Right Center was as good of defensive catcher as there was maybe on the East Coast and maybe in the country, but it'd be tough shoes to fill in that category, but I think Rob will do it sufficiently, and I think with the intangibles he brings behind the plate, it'll be great. And we had a freshman really step up just this past 6 weeks, actually, in the winter. We thought we had high hopes for him in the fall, and now he's really starting to develop and come along. James Denam from Connecticut, and he'll probably get a chance to start a game maybe down at Mississippi State and Grand Canyon, and real anxious to see what he does. He's another guy that brings a lot of intangibles, energy. Guys like throwing to him, they make him more confident, and I'm helping those things will help to make the pitching staff better.
And one of the things you used to mention to me previously with Reistetter's concern is that you always hope that he never developed that offensive game so that an MLB team wouldn't go out there and draft him because he was so good defensively. He moved to the other part of the battery now, the pitching staff. Start with the starting rotation. David DeRico returns again, but who do you think is going to be lining up after him in the rotation?
Let's talk about David first. I think David never was fully recovered from Tommy John, but, you got to see how tough he actually was to just get through last season. It was tough coming back in the middle of the year, and he was just tough, and he's such a great presence when he's out there. And I think what a good person to lead us into Friday nights, into most weekends. And Nick Kozlowski, I think, is really developed for us, and, had a great started Friday night the last weekend against UNC Wilmington and shut out a team in the top 30 in the country, and thought he had a nice summer in the Cape and up in Keene, and he's about as hard as worker as we have on the pitching staff. And then from there it'll be a lot of newcomers in the starting rotation, I feel like, or I feel like we have a lot of options for sure. And the big thing we'll be working on these first few weeks is who are the go-to guys out of the bullpen. After Brett Schreiber, who's a great guy to have at the end, and it was probably our best guy we had going last year for sure out of the pen. I don't know exactly what that's going to be. We have David Jesh that could work out of the pen, or he could come in and start. And then, a lot of new guys. You have a Chris Harkey who's been throwing great in the preseason here. Not sure exactly where to do with him just yet. Maybe bring him out of the pen for a win or start him in games. So we have a lot of tough calls to make early, but the thing is we got a lot of time before Towson, and I think it's something like 24 games before the opening series, and I think that's invaluable for us, and we'll know when we go into Towson who exactly everyone is.
No Verbitsky, so as you pegged anybody to replace him as far as the closer job goes?
That's a big opening right now. I think Brett could close out games, but he's not necessarily like a one-inning type guy. He's come in the sixth and can close the last 4 innings. Last year at Georgia State, he came in the third and closed the last 6 innings. And, that's what I like him in that role, is to get him the ball and let him finish it out. And, I think David Jesh has the type of stuff like Brian, but the tough thing is he could go 4-6 innings, no problem. So, number one, we'll never replace Brian Verbitsky's stuff in the way he was throwing at the end of last year. He was a third rounder for a reason. But, I'm anxious to see what a lot of guys do and to see if there is a guy that develops in that 9th inning role.
Now, as far as catcher goes, you mentioned a big name for a freshman, but what have you seen from the entire freshman class?
The freshman class has been good overall. Brad Witkowski's been a freshman infielder that we all like, and he probably would have been the starting shortstop as a freshman if Dalton hadn't returned or Matt would have had an opening, so it really hurt him. But I think he's played great, and I think he'll help us contribute. John Turinsky, was another catcher, first baseman, DH type guy. I think he'll swing the bat some. You have some guys off the mound, Kieran Ryan, Matt Weisheiser, guys that should be able to help us off the mound. We got a good influx of JUCO kids and transfer kids that I think is the bigger thing that will help us this year.
Now, moving on to the schedule, obviously there's the out-of-conference slate where you like to match up against some bigger teams in the country, and then obviously you have the CAA where it's sort of back and forth. You never know what you're going to get. UNCW consistently is one of the top teams in the conference, but what do you expect to see from both of those slates?
Our out-of-season schedule is about as tough as it gets in the country. Mississippi State ranked anywhere in some polls 2, 4, 6, 8. It's whatever they are, they're really good. And Grand Canyon might not be a name people know, but they were in the College World Series last year, and now preseason in their first year in Division I, they're picked to win the WAC. And they're going to be a really tough opponent, and Incarnate Ward is another D2 team transferring into Division One, but they had 30 wins last year, and Furman's as good a team that we'll see. But what we wanted to do and what we wanted to accomplish is, we've had a problem here in history, I think, of being tough on the road, and at points it improves, but to be a good team in conference, you got to be able to win on the road. So the only way to prepare for it this early part is get out there on the road and play as good a competition as you can. So when you get to CAA play, you're ready for CAA play.
I'm sure you're hoping that the weather's a little bit more favorable to you guys this year.
Well, that it was funny was, we would try to go to warm places last year, and when we get there, it'd be warmer here on Long Island than the places we tried to get to. And of course, we're on the 10-day, 5-day forecast for Mississippi, and it looks like we'll be somewhere between 55 and 65 down there right now. So, that's almost bathing suit weather right now compared to what we've had. And Phoenix should be pretty nice. I think if we get down to San Antonio, we've gotten far enough. But, this preseason's really hurt us. Not being able to get outside anytime on Thursday night when we're at Mississippi State and get practice at their field. It'll be the first team practice outside. And, it's a very big hurdle to overcome.
Finally, Coach, what do you have to do to get back to that CAA tournament and even possibly win the conference?
The thing I think we've been putting most emphasis on, and it's a pretty yearly theme, is the pitching. Has to trump. Our pitching last year, I believe, was the last in the conference, and we almost made the tournament. God forbid if we get it to halfway up, the stats or whatever. We just need improvement. We need, guys at the top of the pitching staff to long hold us down in some games, so it makes the game shorter, and then it's a couple guys to defend in those roles. And we need Dalton and Matt and Kenny Jackson and Cafiero to have good leadership type years. They don't need to have great number years, but I think we could really play defense at a high rate, and that's what I'm hopeful we'll do. Pitching and defense, I think those win games, and it's the common theme. But I think that might be something we're able to do really well.
Head coach of the Hofstra baseball team, John Russo. Remember, Hofstra fans, you can tune into the WB Mason Coaches Report each and every week right here on GoHofstra.com.